voted against that, and I think that was the right thing to do. But I've just got to pick up on what Bill said there. Paid lobbying is against the rules already. Owen Paterson broke those rules, which is why it was right that the Standards Committee report was accepted by the House of Commons. That's already against the rules. What the Prime Minister is doing is bringing forward today what's in the Committee on Standards in Public Life report from 2018. Should have happened earlier, but it's good that it's happening now. Those are tough proposals. We're on the same timetable as Labour set out by the end of January, and for the Committee on Standards to work through the detail. The detail matters, and it's good that a cross-party committee with lay members, so people from outside Parliament, will work through the detail of that and bring forward some proposals, not in the long grass, for us to vote on early next year, and I think that will help bring a lot of confidence for the public over what I accept has been the last couple of weeks, has not been Parliament's finest hour, and I think we've got an opportunity today to support what the government's put forward, and that gives us a good foundation on which to move forward and hopefully start building some of that confidence back.
And Bill Esserson, where does Labour stand now on so-called second jobs for MPs? Should they have other sources of income other than their parliamentary work?
Well, no, they shouldn't. When I was elected to Parliament, I resigned as the director of the company I owned, and because I was taking on a full-time job as an MP, I found it incredible that other people felt that they could carry on as paid directors and as consultants. And I'm afraid, to what Mark said, the trouble with what the government is doing today is they are giving this appearance of just watering down what Labour has proposed. If they really want to show they're serious about dealing with this problem, they'll support what we've already set out in our motion this afternoon, because what we heard overnight was very different from what the Prime Minister said in his letter to the Speaker, and what we heard overnight was Conservative MPs talking about the fact that both Owen Paterson and Geoffrey Cox would be allowed to carry on with the sort of behaviour that I'm afraid has led us to this position just in the last few weeks.
Thank you both, all three of you, very much indeed. Beth Rigby's with me, our political editor, so that's what they're going to be talking about, MPs today, is it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that Keir Starmer will probably want to go in on standards in public life at PMQs as well before they move into this opposition day debate. Why? Because he thinks he's on fertile territory with the electorate when it comes to the Prime Minister and trying to put clear blue water between what he would argue are his set of values and what he perceives Boris Johnson's set of values to be. He thinks he's on a winner, basically. He's seen the polling. The Conservatives have been in a bit of hot water. The polling is not going for them for the first time in a long time. So I think that's what he wants to press on.
Do you think anyone will ask him about his father?
You mean Stanley Johnson?
Yes, the Prime Minister. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but what we will have this afternoon is the liaison committee where the Prime Minister has to go in front of this super committee of senior MPs and they asking questions, and there will be a section on violence against women and girls, and Caroline Noakes, who's the chair of the Equality Select Committee, will be asking the Prime Minister around that area, so let's see what she says and what
OK, Beth Rigby, stay tuned. Coming up, Prime Minister's questions.
Anna, radio flame. Radio. Sao bên đường này nó new one. Okay. What?
Questions in just a moment. Welsh questions just coming to an end, or Wales questions as they are known formally. We'll be going there live in just a second, but Beth Rigby's with me now. Beth, what was the main bone of contention now? We had all these U-turns from the Conservative side. What do they disagree with Labour about now?
Well, what's happened is Keir Starmer's put forward a set of proposals. The government have put forward a set of proposals. The key thing really in terms of what's going on today is that Labour are making the point that their amendment would be binding. So if it was passed, these rules come into effect about limiting second jobs. What the government amendment does is that it puts this into committee. So the Standards Committee goes away and looks at this, and then they come back.
OK, let's go to the Prime Minister now.
And others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Jonathan Edwards.
Diolch, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister will be aware of the considerable public concern in relation to the impression that significant political donations can help acquire a peerage. The Honourable Member for Nahigan Nia will publish a bill later today which will prohibit large party donors from being nominated to the other place for a period of 5 years. Will he offer full government support to my honourable friend's efforts?
Mr Speaker, I will study his proposals with care when the parties opposite commit to stop taking funds from the unions in order to control their policies.
Mr Speaker, during a recent visit to Barnet Hospital, I was told that A&E there is routinely seeing twice the number of people for which it was designed. Thanks to the hard work of staff and big funding increases, the NHS is seeing more patients and delivering more tests, treatments and operation than at any time in its history. But what is the government doing to urgently assist the NHS to tackle spiralling demand for healthcare and a tough winter ahead?
I thank my right honourable friend because over the for what she does to represent her hospital, and I thank them, the NHS staff, for their amazing work that they're doing. We're supporting them by recruiting, as she knows, 50,000 more nurses, putting another £4.5 billion into the NHS over the rest of this financial year, and the best thing we can do to protect our NHS over this winter is everybody to come forward and get their booster vaccination.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Trust matters, and after the last fortnight, the Prime Minister's got a lot of work to do. A central plank in this government's promise to the north of England is a Crossrail of the North, with at least an entirely new high-speed rail line between Manchester and Leeds. A Crossrail for the north, an entirely new line. That is the promise. It's already been made. So I don't want the Prime Minister fobbing off the House about waiting till tomorrow. He can say today, will he stick by that promise, yes or no?
Yeah. Prime Minister. He should wait and see what is going to be announced tomorrow, because we will produce a fantastic integrated rail plan. I'm not going to spoil it for them, Mr. Speaker. Why would I? We're going to produce a fantastic...
Order. I expect the front bench to behave better than what it is doing at the moment. If you don't want to listen to the answer, let me know now. I do, and I cannot hear when you all shout together. We want better politics. I expect better politics from both sides. Let's show a little bit more decorum than we're seeing at the moment. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when we produce our integrated rail plan tomorrow, people across the House and across the country will see what we are doing to cut journey times, to make life easier and better for people in the North East, in the North West, in the Midlands, across the whole of the north of the country. Mr. Speaker, with the biggest programme of investment in rail for a century, Mr. Speaker, for a century. And what we are doing, Mr. Speaker, is we are giving people in those communities the same access to commuter-type services that people in the southeast of this country have felt entitled to for more than a century. And that is going to be levelling up across the whole of the UK, Mr. Speaker.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, that was a lot of words. But it wasn't a yes. So that's one important promise to the North that he won't stand by. Let's look at another. In February this year, the Prime Minister told this House, I can certainly confirm that we are going to develop the eastern leg as well as the whole of HS2. The whole of HS2. A new high-speed line running continuously, no gaps, between Birmingham and Leeds. So will the Prime Minister confirm that he stands by that promise?
Prime Minister. I'm afraid the right honourable gentleman is in danger of getting hoist on his own petard, Mr. Speaker. He needs to wait and see what we announce tomorrow, because I think he will find that the people of the North East, of the North West, the people of Leeds, the people of Nottingham, the people of Sheffield, and the people of the whole of the North West and the North East of this country will benefit massively from what we are going to announce.
Keir Starmer.
Again, Mr. Speaker, a lot of words, but not a yes. So that's two important promises to the North that he won't stand by. No wonder trust in the Prime Minister is at an all-time low. Across the country and belatedly across this House, there is now agreement that Owen Paterson broke the rules and that the government should not have tried to let him off the hook. Many members opposite have apologised. The Business Secretary has apologised for his part. The Leader of the House has apologised for his part. But they were following the Prime Minister's lead. So will he do the decent thing and just say sorry for trying to give the green light to corruption?
Mr. Speaker, yes, as I said before, it certainly was a mistake to conflate the case of an individual member, no matter how sad, with the point of principle at stake, and we do need a cross-party approach on the appeals process. We also need, Mr. Speaker, a cross-party approach on the way forward, and that's why we've tabled the proposals that we have to take forward the report of the Independent Committee for Standards in Public Life of 2018. With those two key principles that everybody in this House should focus primarily and above all on natural here in this House, and secondly, that no one should exploit their position in order to advance the commercial interests of anybody else. That's our position, Mr. Speaker. We want to take forward those reforms. In the meantime, perhaps he could clear up from his proposals, whether he would continue to be able to take money as he did from Mishcon Dorea and other legal firms.
Alafu sasa shida ingine ni hii ya sauti. Unasikia penye tunaongea sasa ikiwa live sauti yetu bado it is being recorded.
That's not an apology. Everybody else has apologised for him.
Che chupate zangine naweza live stream ikiwa na mtoto kwa nyumba. Sasa akianza kulia.
Weeks defending corruption. Yesterday, a screeching last-minute U-turn to avoid defeat on Labour's plan to ban MPs from dodgy second contracts.
No, hata usiku nilijaribu nikasikia bado inaongea.
Plenty of opposition days to come. And we will not let the Prime Minister water down the proposals or pretend that it's job done. We still haven't shut the door on the revolving door where ministers are regulating a company 1 minute and working for them the next. There are plenty of cases that still stain this House. There are 2 simple steps to sorting it out: proper independence and powers for the Business Appointments Committee and banning the...
Together on the basis of the independent report by the Committee of Standards in Public Life to take things forward and indeed to address the appeals process. But what I think everybody can see, Mr. Speaker, is that in a classic lawyerly way, the right honourable gentleman is now trying to prosecute others for exactly the course of action that he took himself. And what I think the nation wants to know, because his register is incomplete, who paid Mishcon Derea and who paid the 25,000? Who's paying him for his service?
Just a minute.
This is someone watching on my laptop.
Prime Minister, I don't want to fall out of touch. I've made it very clear. It is Prime Minister's questions. It's not the opposition to answer your question. Whether we like it or not, those are the rules of the game that we're all into. We play by the rules, don't we? And we respect this House. So let's respect the House.
Mr. Speaker, that newfound commitment to upholding standards didn't last long. But Mr. Speaker, here's the difference. When somebody in my party misbehaves, I kick them out.
Mr. Clark! Where's Rob? Mr. Clark! And I don't think, look, this is not good. We lost a dear friend. I want to show that this House has learned from it. I don't want each other to be shouted down. I want questions to be respected. I expect the public to actually be able to hear the questions and the answers, because I'm struggling in this chair. I need no more. Here, stop.
Mr. Speaker, when somebody in my party misbehaves, I kick them out. When somebody in his party misbehaves, he tries to get them off the hook. I lead, he covers up. Let's try another issue. We know that Owen Paterson was a paid lobbyist for Randox. We know that he sat in on a call between Randox and the minister responsible for handling health contracts. We know that Randox has been awarded government contracts worth almost £600 million without competition or tender. Against that backdrop, the public are concerned that taxpayers' money may have been influenced by paid lobbying. There's only one way to get to the bottom of this: a full, transparent investigation. If he votes for Labour's motion this afternoon, that investigation can start. Will he vote for it, or will he vote for another cover-up?
Prime Minister! I'm very happy to publish all the details of the Randox contracts, which have been investigated by the National Audit Office already. We're talking of cover-ups. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but we still have not heard why the Honourable Gentleman will not tell...
Minister, Prime Minister, sit down. Prime Minister, I'm not going to be challenged. You may be the Prime Minister of this country, but in this House, I'm in charge, and we're going to go. End of that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Prime Minister just said he's happy to publish all the Randox papers in relation to these contracts, so we'll take that and we'll pursue it. And I remind the Prime Minister, when I was Director of Public Prosecutions, I prosecuted MPs who broke the rules. He has been investigated by every organisation he's ever been elected to. That's the difference. Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money handed to their mates and donors. Tory MPs getting rich by working as lobbyists, one not even bothering to turn up because he's in the Caribbean advising team. tax havens. And the Prime Minister somehow expects us to believe that he's the man to clean up Westminster. He led his troops through the sewers to cover up corruption, and he can't even say sorry. The truth is that beneath the bluster, he still thinks it's one rule for him and another for his mates. At the same time as his government are engulfed in sleaze, they're rowing back on the promises they made to the North. And it's working people who are paying the price. Is it any wonder that people are beginning to think that the joke isn't funny anymore?
Mr. Speaker, it is plain from listening to the right honourable gentleman that he seeks to criticise this government while refusing to explain his own position. And you've ruled on that, Mr. Speaker. You've ruled on that, Mr. Speaker. And I hear you. But his own misconduct, Mr. Speaker, is absolutely clear to everybody. His own misconduct is absolutely clear. And meantime, Mr. Speaker, we will get on a cross-party basis. We will get on a cross-party basis with taking forward the business that I've outlined, and we will get on with the business of this government, which is leading the country.
Order. Prime Minister, just, I'm struggling to hear, and if it's correct what I've said, it was about Leader of the Opposition and misconduct. We can't or cannot accuse somebody of misconduct. Now, I may, and just before the Leader of the House gives me an answer, all I'm trying to say, I cannot hear. If it was said, I want it withdrawn. If it wasn't, I will accept it. I'm just a moment. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I referred to the right honourable gentleman's misconduct, because that is what he is guilty of. That is what he is guilty of.
I don't think this has done this House any good today. I'll be quite honest, I think it's been ill-tempered. I think it shows the public that this House has not learned from the other week. I need this House to gain respect, but it starts by individuals showing respect to each other. Right, let's go to Lee, no less. We're going to James Grundy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people of Lee have never accepted our forced merger with the friendly rivals, but rival town of Wigan back in 1973. Could the Prime Minister tell me how we could escape the big government of Big Wigan by getting our own council back?
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend, and I thank him for his campaign against local Labour government over-taxing and delivering inadequate services. The local boundary commission will look at the boundary reviews, but meantime I will support him in any way that I can.
We now go to the Leader of the SNP in Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it used to always be said that the Tory MPs were behind the Prime Minister, but my goodness, look at the gaps on the third, fourth and fifth benches. Mr. Speaker, the rebellion has clearly started. Mr. Speaker, this Tory sleaze scandal has now been hitting the headline for the past 14 days. And yet, it's pretty obvious that the Prime Minister spent less than 10 minutes coming up with yesterday's half-hearted, half-baked and already half-botched proposals. These so-called reforms don't even scratch the surface. This sleaze scandal runs far, far deeper. Month after month, the public have witnessed scandal after scandal. Peerages handed to millionaire donors. VIP lanes gifted COVID contracts to Tory pals. Dodgy donations for luxury holidays and home renovations. The Prime Minister and his government have been up to their necks in sleaze. Can the Prime Minister tell us exactly which one of these scandals his proposals would have stopped?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the the humble crofter, as he refers to himself, for his question. And I would just say that what I think we can do is pursue a cross-party approach based on the report of the Independent Committee on Standards in Public Life, which has much of a profit in it. And it says, amongst other things, that it's important that this House should be augmented with outside experience of the world. It's important that members of this House should have experience of the private sector, as he does. And I think on a cross-party basis, we should proceed with the couple of reforms that I've indicated.
Ian Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, this is about Tory sleaze and Tory corruption. And the Prime Minister has basically admitted that not one of this government's sleaze scandals would have been stopped by his so-called plan. And perhaps we shouldn't be surprised, considering the Prime Minister has been at the rotten core of all these scandals. The trail of sleaze and scandal all leads back to the funding of the Conservative Party. Since 2010, Mr. Speaker, the Tory Party has made nine of its former treasurers members of the House of Lords. Every single one of them has something in common. They have handed over £3 million to the Prime Minister's party. That is the very definition of corruption. It is the public's definition of corruption. Will this government finally accept that this is corruption? Or is the Prime Minister the only person in the country who is the brass neck to argue that it was all one big coincidence?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have to say that I won't comment on the missing £600,000 from the SNP's party accounts. But I do say, Mr. Speaker, in all sincerity and heeding what you've said earlier on, I think these constant attacks on the UK's levels of corruption and sleaze do a massive disservice to billions of people around the world who genuinely suffer from governments that are corrupt, who genuinely have no ability to scrutinise their MPs, Mr. Speaker. This is one of the cleanest democracies in the world, and people should be proud of it.
Simon Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Prime Minister join me in celebrating the 50th anniversary this year of the formation of the 177-mile path for walkers along Offord Dyke, which runs through Clwyd South, and give his support to the recently launched Offord Dyke Rescue Fund to repair and preserve this monument and nature reserve for future generations?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've had the good fortune to walk Offord Dyke very recently, and I'm delighted that English and Welsh organisations are working together to protect that fantastic national monument, and Historic England has committed to give almost £300,000 to that great cause.
Speaker, ambulance response times are now the worst ever. People are waiting for ambulances longer than ever. And with A&Es in crisis, patients are stuck in ambulances outside hospital longer than ever. Waiting times aren't statistics, they are people. People often in great pain and in danger. So why is this government closing ambulance stations in parts of our country? Why is the West Midlands Ambulance Service closing up to 10 community ambulance stations in Rugby, Oswestry and Craven Arms? With this health crisis for our ambulance services and in our A&Es, injured, sick and elderly people are being hit. When will the Prime Minister deal with this health crisis?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that ambulance crews and ambulance services are doing an amazing job, particularly at this time of year, and I thank them for what they're doing. We are supporting them with more cash. Another £450 million was awarded to 120 trusts to upgrade their facilities. And as he knows, we're putting another £36 billion into dealing with the backlogs, which is fundamentally affecting the NHS so badly at the moment, through the levy that we've instituted, which I don't think he supported.
Andrew Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Domestic heating accounts for 30% of UK carbon emissions, and I support the government's incentive scheme to replace the old gas boilers with environmentally friendly alternatives. But now we're building more homes than we have for many, many years. Can we build upon the success of COP26 and ask really what is the progress that is being made on the standards for new build homes to make sure that our new homes are fit for the future?
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend. He's totally right to focus on the issue of future-proofing homes and making them low carbon. And by 2025, our future homes standard will ensure that new homes produce at least 75% fewer CO2 emissions.
Fairness.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last week I visited a GP practice in my constituency of Sheffield, Brightside and Hillsborough and was horrified to hear about the amounts of abuse staff are currently experiencing. Their workloads are under extreme pressure, and this is not helped by the Prime Minister making demands about appointments, whilst he has still failed on his manifesto pledge to recruit 6,000 more GPs. So, will the Prime Minister apologise for this broken promise to GPs and their staff who are on the front line working under ever-increasing pressure and depleted staffing resources?
Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, I want to thank GPs for everything that they're doing, particularly during the booster rollout. But what we're also doing is not just recruiting as many GPs as we can, but we have 10,000 more nurses this year than last year, 25,000 more healthcare professionals altogether. There are more people, Mr. Speaker, now working in the NHS than at any time in its history. And because of our investment, the extra 36 billion that we're putting in, there will be even more. And I'm afraid that the lady opposite voted against that investment.
David Druid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Following on from COP26, can my right honourable friend confirm that maximising carbon capture and storage capacity across the whole United Kingdom is a priority for this government? And, I mean, despite the doom and gloom and the words of rejection and snubbing from the SNP members opposite, can he also confirm that the Acorn carbon capture and storage and hydrogen project in my constituency of Banff-and-Buchan has a key role to play in this country's future carbon capture and storage capacity targets to meet net zero?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend, and he's quite right to champion carbon capture and storage, which has a great future in Scotland, in spite of all the gloom-stirring of the party opposite. The Scottish cluster remains on the reserve, and we will continue to study it, and we hope to bring it forward in due time.
Murray Glendon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The River Tyne, with its world-renowned offshore and subsea sectors, has been repeatedly sidelined by this government, despite me and others constantly lobbying ministers for investment that would massively increase employment opportunities and help the UK's transition to net zero. However, Mr. Speaker, I'm very excited to see our voice is now being magnified by a new Tyne task force set up by the local authorities, the port, businesses and the combined authority. So will the Prime Minister, here and now, commit his government to work with us to realise the full potential of our great river?
Prime Minister.
I thank the honourable lady for her question, and she's absolutely right that the River Tyne is a massive economic asset for the whole of the North East. It has suffered from historic contamination, but we're going to work with the North East Local Enterprise Partnership to invest another £6 million to help develop clear plans for sustainable economic growth along the whole of the estuary.
Henry Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Crawley constituency was one of the most negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, but thanks to significant support from this government, we are seeing recovery, unemployment now beginning to come down, and we look to a confident future. In that vein, will my right honourable friend please look favourably on Crawley's Platinum Jubilee city status bid?
Minister.
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. I wasn't aware until today that Crawley was bidding to become a city, but I will look at it. I will look at it very carefully, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure there is an excellent case in there somewhere.
David Linden.
Thank you. Speaker, every year 100,000 babies are born premature or sick in the UK and admitted to neonatal intensive care units. The Prime Minister will be aware that today is World Prematurity Day. Now, there's cross-party agreement in this House to bring forward neonatal leave and pay. So rather than wait for a complex, controversial employment bill, will the Prime Minister bring alongside a standalone bill to legislate for this so that next World Prematurity Day the 100,000 babies and their parents don't have to choose between spending time in the hospital or unpaid leave from work.
I thank the honourable gentleman. I know he's a passionate campaigner in this area, and one way or another, and I'll get back to him on the exact way, Mr. Speaker, we will legislate to allow parents of children in neonatal care to take extended leave, giving them more time during the most vulnerable and stressful days of their lives.
Chris Clarkson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further education colleges like Hotwood Hall in my Hayward and Middleton constituency will play an essential part in building back better. The team at Hotwood have supported over 8,000 learners on courses as diverse as small business management and animal management, as well as 6 new T-level courses. So, can I invite my right honourable friend to come and visit the inspirational team and the students at Hotwood Hall, and as a special treat, come and see Middleton's very own flamboyants and flamingos and our endangered potoroos.
Prime Minister.
I thank him for his kind invitation. I will certainly keep it in mind, and the government is absolutely committed to reforming technical education through new T-levels, and that's why we're investing a further £65 million to develop teacher retention and support and recruitment for teachers in FE. As for the potoroos in his area, I will bear that. Are they wild, Mrs. Speaker? I will do my utmost to come and inspect them.
Rebecca Long-Bentley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Laura told me that remembering Sunday hurts. It hurts because there have been no medals for her granddad's service and the thousands of men involved in nuclear weapons tests overseas between 1952 and 1991. It hurts because studies of such veterans have shown increased miscarriages, increased birth defects, and the same rate of genetic damage as clean-up workers at Chernobyl. And it hurts because the UK is the only nuclear power on Earth who has denied recognition. So I ask the Prime Minister, will he recognise nuclear testing veterans today and agree to meet them? The Leader of the Opposition has.
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm grateful for bringing this to my attention, and I will certainly make sure that we get a proper meeting with representatives of the nuclear veterans that she raises.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I was in Greece with Save the Children, I learnt that change at any border was quickly communicated down the line. If migrants and asylum seekers knew that they would be directly returned to France or taken to a third country pending application, if they knew this, would they risk a dangerous and illegal crossing and make their way to France in the first place? Can I ask my right honourable friend what further measures are being considered? Because this is an issue of great concern in Eastbourne, along the coast, along the country, and I'm anxious to be able to reassure my constituents that there are plans ahead.
Prime Minister.
I thank her very much, and she has much relevant experience in her work for Save the Children in Greece. Our only credible way of fixing this, Mr. Speaker, is with our new plan for immigration, and that will be made possible with our new Nationality and Borders Bill, which will make it possible for us to distinguish at last between those who come here legally and those who come here illegally, Mr. Speaker. And I hope very much that it will command the support of the whole House.
Kingsbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In May, part of Northwich Station in my constituency collapsed. I've asked the Transport Secretary to intervene and build back better and fairer to allow access for people with disabilities. He's declined my kind offer. I'll ask the Prime Minister to intervene. No bluster, substance, build back better and fairer. Northwich Station, it's in the north of England. Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm tempted to invite the honourable member to wait and see what we do for rail funding tomorrow. But I will certainly look at what he has to say about Northwich Station with keen interest.
Sir Atherton.
Over 4,200 servicewomen and veterans used a democratic process to contribute to the Defence Select Committee's inquiry into women in the armed forces. A formal response is still awaited from the MOD. Now, whilst the majority of women enjoy a fulfilling career in the military, shocking issues were raised around sexual assault, bullying and harassment. I know the Prime Minister agrees with me that our armed forces are the best in the world. Would he also agree with me that we need to make sure the British Army is the best place to serve as a woman?
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend, and she's campaigning on a very, very important issue. I think too often we find that our armed forces fail to provide the wonderful women in our armed forces with the support that they deserve, and that's why I'm pleased that my honourable friend, the Defence Secretary, has secured a parliamentary inquiry into this for the first time, and it's vital that we support and encourage women in our armed forces who make a massive difference to those services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It has cost businesses in Northern Ireland £850 million to date to operate the failed and suffocating protocol. Lord Frost is today in Belfast. When will the Prime Minister fix this by legitimately activating Article 16?
Prime Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman, and I think the word I would fasten on in his question is legitimately. And there is no question that the use of Article 16, which after all has been done by the EU Commission to stop vaccines being exported to this country, is something that is perfectly legal and within the bounds of the protocol.
Jane Hunt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited Humphrey Perkins School in beautiful Barrow-upon-Sword. The students asked me there, what is the government doing to engage children and students from all backgrounds to encourage them to aspire to become an MP and even the Prime Minister?
Prime Minister.
I think what I would say to my honourable friend and her students is that nothing that is said or that takes place in this House, none of the argy-bargy, the repartee, the occasional abuse to which we subject each other, Mr. Speaker, should in any way deter anybody from seeking a career in politics, but it is a wonderful privilege, and we are all, Mr. Speaker, very lucky to be here.
Steve Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Edinburgh West, we are now finding numerous people coming to us with delays in DWP, in pensions and benefits, to add to the delays that others are facing over passports and DVLA. Can the Prime Minister tell us, please, amongst the many jobs being done at the moment, who is making sure that the departments of government are running smoothly and quickly?
Minister.
I thank her, and I think actually that the Department for Work and Pensions under my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, has been a government that has performed outstanding service, performed miracles, and amongst the things that it has achieved, Mr. Speaker, is to help to get millions of people effectively back into employment in spite of all the difficulties that we have faced. We now have unemployment running at virtually record lows in spite of all the difficulties we face, we faced in this pandemic as we come out of furlough, and that is largely thanks to the work of the DWP. Of course, there is more that can be done, and people can always up their game, Mr. Speaker, but I think that the DWP, the officials working in the DWP across the country, huge numbers of men and women, have done an outstanding job.
Final question, Jane Murray.
Mr. Speaker, in July 2019, I was in Manchester when the Prime Minister committed to build a new line, Northern Powerhouse Rail, between Manchester and Leeds. It was a commitment reaffirmed in our manifesto in November 2019 and last month reaffirmed in the Prime Minister's conference speech in Manchester. Were the voters of the North right to take the Prime Minister at his word?
Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but they should wait and see what is unveiled tomorrow, where, Mr. Speaker, he may learn something to his advantage.
The point of order, Michael Fenwick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've just received on the wires that the Leader of the Opposition, and I didn't hear this at the time because of so much noise, called the Prime Minister a coward. Surely that is in breach of Erskine May and improper and should be withdrawn.
Can I say there was a lot of language that I couldn't hear today, and I certainly don't want words. Coward is not what is used in this House, and I'm sure that Leader of Opposition would withdraw.
I withdraw it. But he's no leader.
Tim Farron, point up. Pushing it today, come on.
Speaker, alongside the honourable members for Bermondsey and Old
Well, I think those points of order underlining that it's been a very ugly session of Prime Minister's questions, with Boris Johnson involved in an extended argument with the Prime Minister over questioning Keir Starmer's declared earnings from a second job as a lawyer, which of course he is. With me is
inaonekana nilifinya nikaenlarge.
A lot of normal supporters of the Prime Minister saying that was a pretty bad session.
I was just reflecting on how ill-tempered that was, not just between Keir Starmer and the Prime Minister, but as you know, between the Speaker and the Prime Minister. At the end, Keir Starmer had said to the Prime Minister, "You're a coward, not a leader." Now, Michael Fabricant got up and said on point of order, that's not the language allowed to be used in the House. Keir Starmer withdrew that statement, but then he kept the stinger as he said to the Prime Minister, "You're not a leader." That was extremely ill-tempered. The Prime Minister clearly irritated with Keir Starmer's line of attack, and he kept bringing up the fact that Keir Starmer had taken legal work from Mishcon Dereya back in 2016 when he was on the front line.
And just explain, because you're not allowed to accuse the other side of misconduct, which is what it may have sounded to some people.
Actually, when I first heard it, we were in the studio and I said, well, he can't accuse the Leader of the Opposition of misconduct. But what the Prime Minister was actually doing was perhaps what was a bit ill-judged, actually, because he got severely rebuked by the Speaker for it, but he was saying misconduct, so it was a play on words of the legal firm of Mishcon Dereya, so he was accusing Keir Starmer of misconduct. It was a pun, and he got quite strongly rebuked by the Leader of the House, who said, this is exactly the sort of behaviour that the public do not want to see. He said service day. I mean, at one point the Speaker actually told the Prime Minister to sit down, and he said, "I'm in charge here, not you." And he also said to the Prime Minister, "This is the Prime Minister's questions. It's not your job here to ask Keir Starmer questions. That's not what we're doing." And he said, "We're all those are the rules of the game. We're all here to play by the rules, aren't we?" So the Speaker, very irritated with the Prime Minister today. It's been a trying couple of weeks for the Speaker in terms of parliamentary standards, and it's going to probably be quite a difficult afternoon.
One other thing worth noting, Prime Minister's questions often moment where the temperature of the moving parties is taken. A lot of people commenting, we heard Ian Bradford saying there weren't the usual number of cheering MPs behind the Prime Minister.
No, the Prime Minister has been back for a couple of weeks with his party. I was speaking to a senior Conservative last night who said to me, well, he's definitely in the daytime of his premiership, that the adulation that perhaps the 2019 intake had of him winning that big majority has definitely away, and now it's a tolerance, as this person put to me, of him rather than affection. They were really upset that they were asked to, they were whipped to try and back Owen Patterson on that vote. The Prime Minister returned, he's now asking them to vote for restrictions on second jobs. So they've gone all over the place in terms of parliamentary standards, and the concern for MPs, and you can see it in the polls, is whether this is cut through with the public, and they don't like what they see in terms of the standards that the government are running by.
Beth Ruby, thank you very much, Steve. Well, debates on regulatory MPs about to take place in the Commons. Also, the Prime Minister appearing before the liaison committee this afternoon, so his trying day is certainly not over. Well, the cricketer Azhar Rafiq has called for an entire clear-out of the leadership at Yorkshire Cricket Club and has confirmed that no one from the club has been in touch to apologise for his treatment. He's just been speaking to our sports correspondent, following the evidence he gave of his experience of racism to MPs yesterday.
Azim, we're seeing so many cricketers putting their hands up, they experienced abuse too. You clearly went through a huge ordeal yesterday, speaking so personally about that. Do you think now it seems like it was worth it?
Yeah, I do. I think the last couple of years in particular, I feel like yesterday was a start to show me that it's all
So it is working, yeah?
I think that's all it is. It's very important that people are feeling like they're going to be heard. If they're coming forward, they clearly have some sort of trust that people are going to listen to them and make changes. And I think I see that as a massive progress, that people are coming forward in their numbers.
How did you feel giving that evidence? We could see the pain that was evident.
Yeah,
Naona zimeanza kusomeka.
I wish we weren't there yesterday. I wish we never got to this. And I tried everything to stop it getting here. But I think there was a point that it became very evident that this was the only way the PCB, the PCA and Yorkshire were going to listen. And I think a lot of things have happened in the lead up to this, but I think the threat of this yesterday was what has and the sponsors sped up the process. But yeah, look, I think it's all been worth it, and for now. But it's important that moving forward, this is seen as only the start, as opposed to the end.
What you have said has created some career-ending moments in some individuals. And clearly, what you suffered was appalling. But do you think the way of doing it this way is a fair process?
Well, this is, I think that's where the PCA and Yorkshire County Cricket have got a lot to answer for, because I tried to deal with it in the quietest way possible. All I was wanting is some sort of acceptance and a sorry and an answer to why in certain, but Yorkshire, in trying to protect the institution, have thrown past players and coaches under the bus, in my opinion.
No, nasema unajua natumia hii iko chini hii.
And hopefully for everyone that apologizes and accepts it, I hope it's not going to be a career-ending. But like I said, I think it's a person to be looking at. I think we need to look at solely at Yorkshire County Cricket Club, supported by Squire Patton Boggs and that panel
that was involved in the oversight of the process. You say it's not about institutions, but it has become about individuals. Which of those individuals have spoken to you since you gave evidence from yesterday?
David Lloyd reached out and apologised. I told him how I felt about the stuff he said, the fact that he didn't know me. It was clear that it didn't come from him. He'd been briefed by someone who was close to Yorkshire County Cricket Club. So it was disappointing. I told him exactly how I felt. He apologised. I accepted his apology, and he's put a commitment there that
You've not heard from anyone else connected to Yorkshire County Cricket Club since you gave evidence yesterday?
No, I don't think any of them think there's anything wrong. Still, and it's staggering. The arrogance of these people. Actually, they're helping prove exactly what I'm saying. I mean, Mark Arthur's resignation letter, it was like a CV. I mean,
he listed all his achievements at the club without mentioning racism.
Yeah, and he talked about a 50% catering contract. I mean, read the room, mate. And it just shows exactly where these people are. They don't care.
And that's the fundamental part of how the charge of institutional racism is levied at them, because you don't see any contrition, you don't see any willingness to change. Do you think Lord Patella's the new chairman at Headingley can facilitate and make that happen?
I think he's started well, but the structures are the same. How much and how he will be able to do, only time will tell. I admire the fact that he was very honest with me. And look, he knows everyone's watching. I'm watching, and we're going to be calling it out if it doesn't change. It's pretty clear that there needs to be a total clear out. The 14 people who signed a letter to the board to discredit me because I don't share Whitehall's values according to them. So it's clear that it's so that in the environment so embedded in there that they still don't see what they've done wrong.
Total clear-out means all of those 14 individuals having no further connection to the club and people on the board going, more people, more resignations.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in leadership can stay. I don't think you can leave one in there because that will cause him. I think more for Lord Patel than what. I mean, yeah, them 14 people. I don't think if they're coaches, players, members of the staff, whoever it is, I don't think they should be. I don't think they should be involved in an organisation that clearly has got a lot to do. Hopefully there was no players in that, but there is. If there is, I think they've got to go.
When Gary Balance put out his statement apologising and trying to set his version of what happened, he made some pretty strong accusations towards things that you had said to him that he would anticipate that you would regret. Did that happen?
Well, Gary's statement was quite weird for me because I didn't feel like there was an apology. And I think some of the things that he was actually talking about were actually not correct. So there seemed to be a thing about it was all when I was younger, when 2017 pre-season tour is 4 years ago, so I think it would be 27. So that definitely isn't true. I actually thought everyone got what I'd alleged against them and got a chance to respond. I didn't get any of that, so I don't really know what is being alleged against me. Like I said, there was a massive closing of the ranks. I think out of 29 people, 23 or something were the club employees or club individuals, and I mean, I don't even know what they've corroborated together to say that I've done, and that's where we're at with that. But yeah, I was pretty disappointed by the statement.
Cricket is a sport you clearly love and still love, but it's got a culture, hasn't it? The sledging is a big part of the game. The mickey taking, the kind of embedded, kind of male-dominated in a lot of environments, kind of bravado. Is it capable of change?
I'm not sure. I think it needs the media, the politicians, the government to push them because I think if we switch off in 3 weeks' time, I think these guys will go back to their merry way and carry on as before. I think this, and not just from a race point of view, from gender as well, and other types of discrimination. Like I said, to this point, I've not seen anything from the game or its leaders that shows me they're willing to change. Hopefully yesterday's shifted that a little bit.
The Prime Minister commended you yesterday personally for showing the bravery that you showed in coming forward. What do you make of Boris Johnson making that kind of commendation towards you?
Look, I'm really thankful to the politicians in the last few weeks. I think their intervention has made a big difference in Yorkshire being held to account, the ECB coming under pressure, and hopefully the PCA as well. I think I'd just encourage them to make sure they keep an eye on this, and cricket goes back to, well, not even goes back to, cricket becomes a game, beautiful game that it should be, that it's never been.
What is the thing that stuck with you most from yesterday? Did you go further in explaining what you'd been through than you thought?
Well, to be honest, I don't even know what I said yesterday. I went in there and I just tried to tell the truth. The moments are so raw for me that even right now I can literally feel them exact moments as I felt them then. So, yeah, the one thing that surprised me after was how surprised people were. If you ask any person of colour, they'll say, I'm not surprised.
Nauliza
And Tom Parmenter, who's was
sasa, nimeenda kwa Ngunguu nikasearch how to minimize screen.
and
Ama hiyo
Tom,
sio
I suppose
screen.
that really is the key message. Those final words to any person of colour, they wouldn't be surprised at the extent of the institutional racism described yesterday.
No, and that is why what Azim Rafiq had to say to MPs in Westminster yesterday has resonated so deeply and personally with people, whether they're in cricket, whether in sport, or just their life experiences. And I think it is a huge wake-up call. And you can tell from Azim Rafiq's interview there just how determined he is, that this isn't just something that is a moment that is forgotten about in 3 weeks' time, that this is actually a catalyst for fundamental change, primarily, as you heard there, at Yorkshire County Cricket Club, the club where he suffered the racism that he outlined so powerfully yesterday. And we've approached Yorkshire County Cricket Club for further comment today in response to Azim Rafiq's comments, and we will hopefully hear from them later. But it is a position where at Headingley they have a real crisis on their hands because the sponsors have abandoned them. The ECB have said that they can't host Test cricket there and international cricket there while this scandal is still playing out, and it is very much still playing out. The group, the Independent Commission for Equality in Cricket, has said that 1,000 people in the space of the last week have come forward to share stories of discrimination from within the game of cricket. And that is an indicator, I think, of just the scale of what Azim Rafiq has started. Of course, this is something that he has been, a path that he has been treading for some time, and it's been very lonely along that path for a lot of it. And it's only in recent weeks that this has really come to the fore, to national attention and international as well. This is resonating far beyond England and prompting cricket as a sport globally to have a long, hard look at itself and those charged with running the game to work out precisely what they need to do. It's not just about initiatives and token efforts. This is about fundamental change to drive out a poisonous culture that has led to so much suffering, as Azim Rafiq himself has been so clear in his testimony yesterday and again speaking to us today.
Tom Parmenter, thank you very much indeed for that well-summed statements now. Yesterday, the England and Wales Cricket Board, the ECB Chief Executive Tom Harrison apologised, saying, "Please understand that we're really sorry for the experiences you may have been through trying to experience cricket in this country. We know we may have let you down. We'll fix it fast. We know the survival of our sport depends on it. We'll transform this game very quickly." And Gary Ballance was also mentioned by Azim Rafiq there. In a previous statement, he said, "It has been reported that I used a racial slur and that I am the other, and as I told the independent inquiry, I accept that I did so and I regret doing so. I do not wish to discredit Rafa by repeating the words and statements that he made about me and others, but I have to be clear that this was a situation where best friends said offensive things to each other, which outside of that context would be considered wholly inappropriate. I regret that these exchanges took place, but at no time did I believe or understand that it had caused Rafa distress. If I had believed that, then I would have stopped immediately." Well, now, some latest pictures of Her Majesty the Queen in Windsor. This is Her Majesty standing up and meeting the Chief of Defence Staff, General Sir Nick Carter.
Good to see you. Well, it's rather sad that it's yours.
I know, 8 years as a Chief of Staff. It is a long time. In fact, the only person who's done longer, I'm told, is Lord Mountbatten.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
So I'm quite surprised by that.
I suppose if you get into that job, you know, it's easy to continue, isn't it, really?
Yes, I think that's right. Although I have to say, I think the time comes when it is ready to move on.
So, Her Majesty the Queen back in business after missing the cenotaph ceremony because of a strained back. Well, that's all from All Out Politics for today, but do stay with Sky News. A very, very busy day in the headlines.
địa không? Vì đó à? Dia bisa mengerti. Kalau mau bahasa apa? Ando na jadi mana ni jam mungkin. Kau bukan yang jelas semua. Bukan kalau. Ini mana bây giờ dia mau dah mana yang benda dia. Itu nada dia. Weba. Mana benda. Anda itu diganti apa yang macam. Halo. Ini mana ada? Ini gue baru mungkin dah. Pada bila lah. Ini baru kita aku sebut. Salah.